Okay, this video is to simply show how to create a site locally and get that local site to deploy. For speed of the video, I have already gone to WPEngine where the server exists. We're going to pull down the Mad Cow dev site. And so I've done that, which lives right here in this folder. I'm using MAMP for this example. So in my MAMP folder, which is htdocs, I created a Mad Cow dev folder, which you can call whatever you want. Actually MAMP through an index.php in there, which is adorable. So all I'm going to do is grab all of these files. I'm just going to move them because I don't need them in this folder anymore. And then, as we know, WPEngine pulls in their own files, which then makes your makes your site have those functions on them. So I just delete all of MU plugins, which are all WPEngine files that we don't need, and the MySQL we're going to use to do our import. So in MAMP, I have launched MAMP, the free version, not MAMP Pro. You have general ports. I'm not going to go over those because that's just your MAMP stuff, but I hit choose, and then I go to my htdocs folder, and I pick my new Mad Cow dev, and just hit choose, and OK, and then I think it starts automatically. It does. Now I go into MySQL, I go into phpMyAdmin. I do not have a Mad Cow database in here, so I go to my databases, and I'm just going to call it Mad Cow Dev, all one word. Hit enter, hit import. I'm going to go find my file that I just put in my htdocs, which is in Mad Cow content root right here. That's where WPEngine puts it. I'll open that and hit go. In a couple seconds, it'll be done doing its thing. The most important piece here is that you have to change the URL and URI. I find the easiest way to do that is to go into WP options. You typically have to hit browse. It'll default to structure, but if you hit browse, I'm just using this for the Fight Factory, which is a different site we're using, because I've already done this, so I don't have to retype this. But it's just localhost 8888. So if you remember that, you're smarter than me. You don't have to worry about that. And then I go back to my Mad Cow dev. I go back to my WP options here. Again, back to browse. And this is the URL that WPEngine puts in there. We just imported that database. So I'm just going to update these two pieces. And I'm done with phpMyAdmin. And hopefully when I hit my website, oh, I skipped a step. Okay, so the next thing we have to do is connect our database. This is kind of WordPress 101. So here's my Mad Cow dev root, which is in my htdocs, again, for MAMP. One of the things I typically do is the config file, as you can see in here, for WPEngine has a whole bunch of extra stuff that we just don't need. So I always rename this to the WPEngine WP config, and I just use the default sample that shows up with WordPress. I just rename it to WP config, and then all we have to do is update this. And if you've forgotten, we can come back over here and go into phpMyAdmin, and we know that Mad Cow Dev is the name of our database. Again, if you're smarter than me, you remembered that. So our database name, all lowercase, Mad Cow Dev. And then if you've used if you've used MAMP before, you know that your username and password is root. I don't do any of this other stuff. I just think it's a waste of time. Debug true is pretty handy when you're developing locally, but that's entirely up to you. So now I'm guessing that if I refresh, Mad Cow Web comes up. So now I have my website working locally. I don't need this anymore. I don't need the MAMP file anymore. So that's quick and dirty. I have a website running on my local machine, which this is not my live site, but it's the dev site. So let's keep moving. The goal here is we want to always be using GitHub. So that's our next step now. We are currently in the organization. We've created a Mad Cow web design organization, which if your name is Jeff, you're a part of that. if you're new, we'll add you in there. So we need to create a repo for mad cow dev. It's just as simple as that. So I just create a new repo. I'm going to call this, I'm going to end up deleting it, so I don't really care. I'm going to call it mad cow dev. In this case, I'm going to make it public. There's a reason for that. The biggest reason that you have to be aware of is that in order to use the SSH keys to deploy our site, to deploy our child theme to WPEngine, these have to be public. I don't care if you do readmes and git ignores, it's entirely up to you, that really depends on how familiar you are with Git. So we're kind of done with that. Now we have a repo. I have my command line open. All we ever want to push, I'm back over here in MAMP, all we ever want to push is our child theme. So we're using Beaver Builder, and we have a Mad Cow Web as our child theme. So I'm going to put that in my terminal. I just hit change directory because I'm lazy and I trapped it. So now I'm in the Mad Cow Web repo. You can copy this whole thing and paste it. I don't necessarily like to do that, so I just do git init. And one thing that you'll notice, by the way, as I'm doing this, is you will start to see things show up over here. So as soon as I hit git init, you're going to see a hidden Git folder show up over there. Boom, there it is. So now we have a local repo, and then I can say, if I do git add space period, that adds everything. I have shortcuts, so GS, I believe they're called aliases, is actually git status. So there you'll notice that everything in here matches all of our cute little files over here. So, and they're green, meaning they're not quite, they've been added, but we haven't committed anything. So now you git status, I do git commit -m quote first commit. And if you'll notice, I'm typing this here, but I've done git add because they think that we have an empty one, but we don't. And then git commit first commit. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. So now this is actually committed into my repo. I'm not going to do this branch M thing. And that's just you could probably do some reading on your own, but I believe that GitHub has now changed all of their, what I used to call master branches are now called main. I honestly think it's a racism thing, to be perfectly honest with you, but we're going to skip that for now. And we're going to use this bad boy. And what this does is this basically says, hey, use this Git repo as our remote branch. I'm just going to copy and paste that. So now the remote branch is my Git. And then if I do Git Push origin, I'm going to call that master. I think if I do Git Push, it might actually work. Yeah, it's not set. So now I can do Git Push. I just follow the directions here. When you make a mistake, set upstream origin master, because we didn't rename it to main, which we probably should. Now it's just doing this, and this should work just fine. It pushes everything up there. Everybody's happy. If I come over here and click on my Mad Cow Dev, boom, I've got all my stuff in there. So now we have a local website running. We have a local repo for our child theme, and we have a remote repo at GitHub so that if you or I are working on something and we want to share this information, I can just go pull your repo and work on the site locally, knowing that I have the most current things. The other reason, super important for today, is that we want to deploy our changes, because that is super cool and GitHub can do it for us, which we love. So I'm going to create an action. You can read all this if you want. I'm just going to set up a workflow for myself. And it gives me this mess here. I've actually created one of these so I don't have to remember it every time. And I guess I'm going to go through it with you right now, just so that we're all kind of on the same page here. I need to update mine, but so what this does is our branch is going to end up being main, but for now it's master, which is fine. The WPEngine environment name is just the name of, well, just the environment. So in this case, it's Mad Cow Dev, and you can copy it right from there. So, and what your hint here is whatever the subdomain is. So if it's this one's live, so madcowweb.com is live, but you can see this dev19 Loon Mountain Real Estate.WPEngine. It's that beginning piece. So for us, we're just going to grab Mad Cow Dev, and that is our WPEngine environment name, not the other one I just did. These two things you do not touch. What that's using is the Mad Cow Web SSH keys that have been added to WPEngine. So these are going to reference our organization, and that organization is going to use these SSH keys to deploy to WPEngine. That, by the way, is why you don't make your repo private, because these can't be used on private repos. Just ignore all of this stuff because it's all just gobbledygook. And then the only piece that is interesting here is it's doing rsync. So it's looking at the changes that you've made. Typically, you're going to make style sheet changes or whatever else. And then it's deploying just the differences in what you've pushed and what's on the server. So what we need to do now is, oh, we just looked at that actually, didn't we? Yeah, so the name of our child theme is mad-cow-web. So this path down here for rsync is the WPEngine environment name, which we've added up here. We don't need to put that in. And then all this gobbledygook. And then I just put this up in there. I wanted to go, the only thing we ever want to mess with is a child theme. So in this case, I'm going to go mad-cow-web. I always leave a / at the end. And so now I'm going to just take this that I've just updated, and I'm going to dump it into this action. So I'm creating an action. It calls itself main.yml. I don't care about any of that stuff. I'm just going to paste this. So now we know that you can do a soft wrap, which I think is handy. Now we know it's going to the right folder. It's going to the right environment. I'm going to commit this, and it's important to know that I'm committing this on GitHub. So now my remote repo is in front of or ahead of my local one. So I don't think it'll tell me that. No, but if I do git pull, you will see that that file was pulled in. So now my local branch, and you probably, if you didn't notice this new GitHub folder showed up with the workflow with our main.yaml. If I double click that, it looks exactly like what we just put in there. So we know that the main.yml is in place now. I'm going to save that because it needs to be master for now. So that's my local copy. And this is my cheat sheet for today. So we pulled the site, we added it to MAMP, we added the database, we imported the database, we added the repo, and now we're adding the action, and now we're going to test it. So we have our action set up at GitHub. What we need to do now is make a change to our site. And this is the local site. Let's just make sure madcowdev.wpengine.com. Let's make sure it looks the same. And then what I'm going to do here is just change something really, really obvious, like maybe this guy. The other thing I do, by the way, I use VS Code. So in my local environment here, I just grab my child theme. You can't see it because it's off screen, but I'm just going to grab my child theme and just drop it on top of the VS Code icon in my taskbar. And then I have everything I want. I do a kind of a funky style sheet thing with my functions that I'm pulling in. Let me open this thing up. Oh, sorry, it's actually, I always forget this, it's in classes. So I'm changing it up. I'm putting in a file time so I don't have cache going on, and I call it Mad Cow Styles. So just so you know, that's why the file is not just style.css. And then I guess I want to do something really obvious so that we can see it. So let's do the H1. Color is white. Okay, cool. So I'm just going to do H1 font size 99, color red. I'm just going to save that, refresh my local machine. It did not like my red, but it did do our font size. Let's just make it important. I don't want to waste a lot of time with this, but I just want it to be quick. Okay, cool. So now it's red. Font size is 99 apparently. All is well in the world. And here's the live site, madcowdev.wpengine.com, and it's still the same. We'll go ahead and just do the inspector, not that we have to, but font size is 68. So, and then the color is obviously white. So now you probably understand, you probably know all this stuff, but I'm just going to kind of run through it. So if I do git status, again, I've got a little short code there. So it's an alias. So git status is just GS. I'll just type it out. Mad cow styles is not in place, so we're going to do a git add. You can also just do mad dash and hit tab, and it'll fill it in for you. Or you can just do the period, whatever you want, and then git commit dash m test deploy, and then GP is git push. So now it's being pushed. If I go to my actions, I've got a test deploy that's queued. It's kind of fun. You can actually watch it go, and it's you can see the date. It's April 23rd. I just figured this out. It's 4:30, so it's kind of fun to watch it. Obviously, if you're working, you're not going to waste your time watching this thing. But typically, when I run into errors in the past, open up this file. It turned green, but I do want to show this thing. When this thing turns red, which it will, this will turn red for errors. A couple things have gone wrong today while I've been testing. Number one is I didn't have the SSH keys set correctly. Those you should never have to worry about. You do want to be careful with your environment name because you could deploy to somebody else's site, which is kind of scary. And then my branch was wrong. So this defaults to main. It doesn't default that. The test I created defaulted to main. It didn't really work. And then you really do want to be careful about this path here because when I was first testing this, I just deployed without any sort of path. It was somebody else's code, and it dumped my child theme into my root directory, which was not cool. So, all right, so now we got a green light. We know our deploy worked. We're going to go to the live site, and we're going to hit a magical refresh here and see what happens. Boom, turned red. So I didn't have to do any transfers with transmit, none of that stuff. It worked just magically. I'm going to stop talking, and best of luck.